Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Storytelling Alchemist show on the Los Angeles Tribune. I am here every week at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. My guest tonight, I met a couple months ago, and we were part of a group called the Mentor Studio. And so we met and had a Zoom call and just really appreciated his story. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is the CEO of a company called the Naked Warrior Recovery. He is a retired Navy SEAL and was in the military for 26 years, retired in 2018. We're going to be talking about his life in his company and the work he is doing for military veterans beyond their military careers. So please welcome to the show, William Branum. How's it going, William? How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I can't complain. Well, like we were saying earlier, I could, but
So you could totally complain, but why? Why?
So I was just, you have such a rich history in your life, which, a lot of people I'm sure do, and they have great stories about what's going on in their life. But you were a Navy SEAL. I'm not sure if it was your entire 26-year military service, but
It was
uh,
23 of my 26 years.
yeah, so that's the Navy SEAL is what we talk about. That's like one of the most elite parts of the military. Um, what took you down that realm of military, Navy, and then Navy SEAL program? What brought you into that life?
So as a kid, I grew up in a little town outside of Meridian, Mississippi. Not a lot going on there. It was back in the day before the internets existed, before Al Gore invented the internets, and so we had 4 channels on TV. I watched a lot of kung fu theater. I watched a lot of John Wayne movies. I watched some Chuck Norris movies. I watched John Rambo. I watched Cowboys and Indians, old Civil War movies, and I I always knew that I was going to be. I thought I wanted to be part of some sort of small elite military organization, although I didn't know what that was or what that looked like at the time. I was highly, very involved in Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. I was very poor growing up, but I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. So the Boy Scout group in my area that I was involved with, they paid for me to go to this national jamboree. It's a once every 4-year deal, and so I got to go. I met a kid that was in the sister troop, and he was like, when I grew up, and this was like, we're like in between 11th to 12th grade of high school at the time. He said, I want to go to the Naval Academy. I want to fly F-14 Tomcats, like the movie Top Gun, and I want to be a Navy SEAL. And I was like, that's cool. I want to go to the Naval Academy. I want to, fly F-14 Tomcats. And what's a Navy SEAL? And so he explained what they were, and I was like, that's super cool. I think that's what I want to do. I had no real commitment to it at the time, though. And I also swore that I would never join the Navy because almost every man in my family has been in the Navy. And I'm like, I'm not joining the Navy. Like, I don't want to ride on the ship. I don't want to do any of that Navy stuff. And I came back from that jamboree, and like a week later, the Navy recruiter calls my house and said, hey, man, have you ever thought about joining the Navy? And I was like, well, do I tell the truth right now or not? And so I was like, yeah, I want to go to the Naval Academy. I want to fly F-14 Tomcats, and I want to be a Navy SEAL. He was like, check, I got you. Why don't you come on down here tomorrow and we'll have a conversation? So I went down there. He showed me like this really terrible, cheesy recruiting video of Navy SEALs. It was really bad, but it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen at the time. And so I'm like, yeah, where do I sign up? And so I basically joined the Navy before I graduated, before I even started my 12th grade of high school. So I joined in the delayed entry program. I graduated my 12th grade of high school and went pretty much directly off to boot camp to start.
Yeah, I remember those days. A buddy of mine wanted me to go to the Navy when we were in high school, and that was during the Clinton administration. He's like, we're not even at war now.
Right.
As a matter of fact,
yeah, right. And they were downsizing the Navy. I remember running into people that were after I'd graduated boot camp and I went to this other school, and I went to this other school that actually almost prevented me from becoming a SEAL. And I met a guy that was getting ready to get out. He'd been in the Navy like 10 years, and the Navy was like paying him extra money to like end his contract early. It was interesting. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, I remember those times. So what was it like? I mean, the movies portray the SEALs as like this hard core. The training and Navy SEAL training is very difficult, and that being a SEAL is like one of the hardest things you could ever do. What is that like in the in
You
life.
know, I think it's all perspective.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I knew it was going to be hard, but I had no idea how hard it was going to be. But I'm also the kid that kind of grew up with a mediocre attitude. I was not a good athlete at all. I wasn't good at anything really naturally. I have no natural gifts at all, but I do have tenacity. I do have a lot of grit. And so when we were doing hard things, it was just like, yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it's supposed to be. I expect it to be hard. And I would really trip out on guys that were in way better shape than me, that made things look super easy. Watch those guys quit because they didn't like the fact that you fail like every day in SEAL training. You're going to fail. It doesn't matter how awesome you are. You're going to fail. You're not going to be fast enough or smart enough or strong enough or something. Even if you're doing everything great, they're great leaders. They're great, whatever. And I would trip out that they would quit, or guys would quit because they didn't like being in that frigid Pacific Ocean. And yeah, that ocean is cold. At least 10 months out of the year it is. Or carrying that boat on their head, or running, or guys get injured and they're like, yeah, you had an opportunity to stay, but they chose to not stay. And like, oh, the instructors don't like me. I didn't make it, and it's not my fault. I'm like, well, it took me 13 months to make it through that 6-month block of training because I got hurt several times. And, I don't think that I would have those opportunities today because it's a very again, but when I went through, there were no movies, there were no books, there was nothing like that out there. There was a couple of books. The books that I read there was one called Brave Men, Dark Waters from Vietnam. There was the book Rogue Warrior, Richard Marcinko wrote. A little bit of embellishment in that book, but it was still, entertaining read. Some truth, a lot of truth in there, but certainly some embellishment. And I read a book by Tom Clancy called Without Remorse. Those are the only things that I could find, on the ship that I lived on in Yokosuka, Japan, that had anything to do with Navy SEALs. So there wasn't a lot of mental preparation. I didn't really know what I was really getting into. But I joined, and then I eventually graduated, and I made it to the SEAL teams, and I spent, my last 23 years in the SEAL teams, and it was one of the most awesome things I've ever done.
So you said something really powerful that I think everybody needs to hear, and it's something that I know in my life I've had just different things. Of course, I don't like anybody telling me I can't do something, and that'll just mean I'm going to push harder. And so, but you basically talked about perseverance or stamina to never give up.
Right.
And you just kept on going, and you graduated and went through that. And a lot of people give up, and it doesn't even mean that was pretty intense situations, but people will give up on their dreams. They'll give up on because it gets a little hard. They'll give up on their relationships. They'll give up on a lot of things just because it gets hard, and life is like that. So what are those times? Did you ever have those thoughts? I mean, I was in drum and bugle corps, and I remember 13-hour days of rehearsing, exhausted, my heart rate up, and I'm like, there's part of me that wanted to quit. I was like, no, because somebody said I couldn't do it. I'm never giving up on myself. What did you do? How did you get yourself through those days?
The thought of quitting never crossed my mind. No. And kind of like you, there were so many people that said you'll never make it.
Yeah.
And what I found out kind of later on is most of those people tried it and they failed, or they tried it and they quit.
They were the quitters.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't show up here to quit. As a matter of fact, there was a point where I was injured. The second time I was injured in basic underwater demolition SEAL training, they were going to kick me out. They're like, well, this is your second time being injured. The first guy that I talked to recommended, kicking me out and sending me back to the fleet. And I was like, what? And then the second guy that I saw, I'm standing in his office. I'm like teary-eyed. I'm crying my heart out. And I told him the story about how I actually got to SEAL training. And it wasn't the way that most other people get there. It is the way, but I made some tactical errors just getting to SEAL training. So number one, I failed the SEAL screening test the first time I took it. I actually failed it the second time I took it also, but that's a different story. So the first time I took it in boot camp, I failed it. That would have put me on my way. And I had the wrong mindset at the time. I was shooting for the minimum numbers that I needed to score. I wasn't shooting for the maximum of whatever the exercise that I could do. So I failed it. And then, I was in Great Lakes, Illinois in the wintertime. And I was like, I don't really want to get up at 4 a.m. to go take the SEAL screening test in the forging through the ice and the snow and the whatever and the 80-mile-an-hour winds. I didn't want to do that before I start my my school day, and so that almost cost me my entire dream of becoming a SEAL, because I took another school for 4 months in Virginia Beach. I was going to take the SEAL screening test to go to BUD/S out of that, because my thought process was, I'll get in better shape. I'm in pretty good shape now, but I'll get in better shape. Then I'll go to SEAL training. But what I didn't know is I had 24 months of obligated service to the Navy when I took that other school. So now I'm on a ship in Yokosuka, Japan. It's my time to go to my next command. And I call the guy who's going to let me go to my next command. I say, hey, I'm going to put a package in to go to BUD/S. And he was like, that's great, but you're not going to go to BUD/S. You're never going to become a Navy SEAL, because that school that you went to in Virginia Beach makes you too critical to the Navy. I will not let you go. The end. Oh, wow. I got letters of recommendation. I got, my commanding officer was calling people. No one was letting me go. And then one day, the chief of naval operations came to my ship in Yokosuka, Japan. And to just kind of put in perspective who that person is, he was the most senior person in the Navy. The only people in the Navy or in the military more senior to him is the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. Wow. So that guy came to my ship in Yokosuka, Japan, and he said, this is my plan for the Navy. Blah, blah. I don't have no idea what he said. And then he said, does anyone have any questions? Oh, I got one. And he called him. I was the second guy he called. I said, I joined the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go. My detailer won't let me go. He says I'm too critical. I think I deserve a chance to go. What do you think? He turns to my commanding officer and he says, hey, is he a good guy? And my commanding officer says, yeah, he was a sailor of the quarter this month, which is like employee of the month. And he turns back to me. He's like, check, you'll be in the first class after your PRD, which is planned rotational date. 6 weeks later, I'm off to California to SEAL training. So now I'm standing in that commander's office at SEAL training. The first guy said, we're kicking you out. I still hold a grudge to that guy. I remember when he became the commanding officer of SEAL Team 4, I still didn't like him. I still hold that grudge today, and he's retired, and we're both retired. But the second guy, he was like, check, go wait outside. I told him my whole sob story. I went and stood outside on my crutches. I saw my class come in. I'm like, all I want to do is be with my class. They were all wet and sandy and miserable. I was like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And so the guy comes back like 4 hours later. I'm still standing there on my crutches, standing outside. He's like, what are you doing here? And I said, you told me to stand outside. And he's like, okay, yeah, go check in over there and you'll be in the first class. So eventually I made it through SEAL training, and I didn't even heal up from that injury until after Hell Week. And so then they rolled me one more time, and I was like, I've burned all of my silver bullets, so I can't get injured or let anything happen anymore. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna like scratch and claw my way to get through this thing. So
you were actually in teams that actually did missions that were all approved by the President of the United States, from what I understand.
Yeah. So I have I've been fortunate or not. I'm not even sure the right answer there, but I've been, we have done missions that were, directed. Number one, either directed by the President. So for example, we were, we trained to go do direct action missions to go hunt down terrorists and things like that. But in 2005, we were redirected. Hey, I know that you're hunting terrorists and all this other good stuff, and this is what you guys are trained to do, but we have a no-fail mission. We have this mission that there absolutely can be no failure, so we want you guys to go do it. And so we were directed to protect the interim government of Iraq from any sort of, like, keep them safe, keep them alive, keep democracy alive. And so from that, one of those, it was the most unsexy thing I've ever done in my career. One of the most unsexy things. The other thing that is approved by the President of the United States is the other unsexy thing. But, I did get to be in the room when they were writing the Constitution. I was one of only 2 other Americans that got to be in the room when they were writing their Constitution in Iraq. And that was super interesting. Yeah, it was super cool. Not sexy, but kind of cool.
Yeah, but you were there making history.
Yeah, and then the other thing was the team that I was a part of in my last the end of my career. We were doing some pretty cool stuff, not sexy, where those missions were, we planned the mission. We, even on our way to go execute the mission, it's getting routed up the chain of command to the President, and the President puts his signature on it to basically accept the risk in the event of some sort of mission failure. And mission failure, I can't tell you what that looks like, but it does look something kind of like, a picture of me or someone else on a television station that we probably shouldn't be on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
in some country that we probably shouldn't be in.
And they should
something like that.
So fast forward just a little bit, 2018, you retire from the military.
Yep.
And you come out of that. What was life like after the military for you? What was your mindset and, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I tell people that my transition from the military to civilian life is the hardest military mission I've ever been on. And I've been on a couple. And I'm still on that mission today. I went from, if you've ever seen the movie The Avengers, where Thanos like snaps his fingers and half the world's population goes away. That's kind of the way I felt. One day I have a purpose, I have a mission, and I have a team, and a pretty badass purpose, mission, and team. The next day, it's all gone. I have no purpose, I have no mission, and I have no team. And I had some other baggage, I call it baggage, from, some, occupational hazards and maybe not so awesome relationships that I've been a part of. And so, I had a medicine of choice, and it was alcohol. And alcohol was, it helped to like dull this noise in my head. And so I would just pretty much drink myself to sleep at night. And so that was not a very healthy way to live. And so I had to find an alternative to alcohol in order to fix my own wagon over here.
And that's what led into Naked Warrior Recovery, or are you just So
eventually I had heard about this molecule called CBD, and I'd heard about it before while I was still in the military, but because I was still drug tested and I was still had a top secret clearance and I had all these other things, there was no way I was going to even go down that road. I heard it on a podcast. Someone was talking about so everyone knows about like medical marijuana and THC and all this other stuff, but there's this other molecule in the cannabis plant. It's called CBD. And this was, again, before CBD was like super cool like it is today. But he said it helps with certain kinds of epilepsy. It helps with stress, anxiety. It helps with chronic inflammation, chronic pain, helps people sleep better. And I'm like, dude, that sounds like something I need, but I probably don't need to go down that road right now. And so I didn't for a couple of years. So I retired in 2018. I didn't try CBD until 2019. And it was around May, June of 2019. I was in Virginia. I had lunch with a buddy. I said, hey, I think I'm going to go see if I can find some CBD, because maybe what you have here in Virginia is better than what we have in Hawaii. And so he's like, oh, you want CBD? I've got some back at the house. He's a big guy on Instagram, and some companies sent him some products. And so he gave it to me, and I tried it. And maybe I slept a little better that night. Maybe I was a little less pissed off the next day. I don't really know that I really felt anything, but I just took it because why not? It can't hurt. And then I ran out. And then what I noticed is, pains that I had been experiencing before were not quite as bad. And now that I've stopped taking this CBD thing, like I'm starting to get more pissed off. And the kind of analogy I use is water boils at 212 degrees. I was probably living my life at 210 degrees. So it didn't take much, to trigger me, to hit me, for me to hit that boiling point. And what happened really over time, when I kind of went back and looked at it, is I went from like 210 to 205 to 200 to 195 to 190 to 185. Like my thermostat went down. My fuse got longer. I was able to like process things before I reacted. I stopped reacting to things. I started responding in a proper way. And so I ran out of that bottle of CBD, and I started getting closer to that boiling point again. And so I tried a different brand, and I had a similar benefit, like really positively impacted my life. So I was like, I want to be a part of this industry somehow. And I met a girl that was in the CBD industry, and her company, they were putting CBD into kinesiology tape, like rock tape. You see like athletes with like tape on their shoulders or their knees and stuff like that. So she was putting CBD into this tape for the pain and inflammation, while the tape kind of holds everything in place. And I was like, oh, you're in the CBD industry. I wanted to work for her. Like maybe this is my new purpose, my new mission, and she's going to be part of my new team. And so she was like, so do you want to do A to B or B to B or B to C? And I was like, I don't know what those letters really mean. I want to do CBD. I thought that's what you did. And she was like, okay, I got you. I'm like, like, maybe I can work for you. I can help you sell. I can do whatever. And she was like, well, why don't you just start your own CBD company? And I said, I don't know how to do that. And she leaned in and she said, you are a Navy SEAL. You can figure it out. And so I asked her for my man card back. And so she graciously gave it back to me. I put it back in my pocket to never give it up again. She helped educate me on the industry. I found out that it's extremely dirty industry, very corrupt. You know, a lot of people, you know, this was 2019. A lot of people are like, let's just get rich quick. Let's just create some stuff and put it out in the market. And as I started researching the industry, because someone just believed in me that I could do something that I didn't even believe in myself, I'd become a Navy SEAL. I don't think I can start a CBD company. That's hard. Becoming a SEAL was easy, as far as I was concerned. And so I did all this education, and I was like, wow, the industry is really terrible. Like 70% of the products out there, either they don't have CBD in them, they don't have the products they say they have in them. They have high levels of heavy metals, mercury, arsenic, lead, things like that. And like, if you're putting something into your body to be a medicine, this is not medical advice, but you don't want to be putting a bunch of poisons and toxins in your body at the same time. Right. So I was like, well, I guess my mission is to create the highest quality product in the market and sell that. And so, you know, if you look at the market today, everyone says they have a premium CBD product. And so I went out and found the suppliers that actually did create the highest quality product. And, you know, the suppliers that I use raise the bar on the standard, because there's not a lot of standards out there for supplements at all. And actually the standards that we use for CBD are higher than almost any supplement in the market, much less CBD. So so when I saw that, like, everyone else is like, what's a bigger purpose? What's a bigger mission than, you know, having a high quality product? You know, like I said, because everyone's premium CBD. You know, I looked at where I came from. I looked at, you know, things that I've struggled with, and I saw the statistic that 22 veterans take their lives every single day. It's actually probably a bigger number than that. And so our mission at Naked Warrior Recovery became 22-0, to eliminate veteran suicide. And so that's what the 22 is here on my shirt. That represents the 22 veterans a day. So our mission is to eliminate veteran suicide. And yeah, so that's really our mission. And so, you know, to kind of add on to that, CBD was a modality that helped kind of turn down this noise in my head so I could have more positive self-talk. And it helped me to come up with the get naked mindset. And really what that is, it's about taking that ego off, taking that baggage that we all carry around off, taking that armor that we carry around off, and set it in the corner, becoming vulnerable, exposing yourself so you can find the healing that you actually need. Because, you know, when I think about, you know, going into combat, and we all go into combat every single day, you know, we're combating the media, we're combating social media, we're combating like people at work, family members, whatever. Some people are attacking us, and it's not like direct attacks. Sometimes they're like, you know, backhanded attacks. Excuse me. Awesome. And we end up like wearing this armor around all the time. And so in the SEAL teams, when we go into combat, we put our armor on and our helmet, and we go into harm's way, and it helps save our life sometimes. Other times, and then we come back and we take that armor off. In life, we don't do that. We end up wearing that armor around, wearing that baggage around, and we never take it off. And then it ends up weighing us down, and then we start suffering more from it.
Wow. Bless you.
Sorry, I've got a little sinusy cough thing going on here. So
I always have in Florida as the best place for allergies.
I did a podcast yesterday, and I got pretty good at like muting myself before I started coughing.
Happens. So there's a lot of this is great stuff, because I've had friend, one of my particular friends, he passed away a couple years ago. He was a Vietnam War vet, and I remember CBD would have been helpful for him because of all the PTSD he suffered from. And I remember he told me this story about a Vietnam kid coming up to him, and he was basically going to blow himself up to kill whatever the military presence there, and he ended up shooting the kid, to protect him and his team. And I remember he just cried telling me this story. And this is a 60-some-odd-year-old man. And I remember I just broke my heart, because of course no man would want to kill a child. I don't care if it's defending yourself or not. And so I just remember thinking, and just the way you're talking, that would have probably helped him sleep better. And
Yeah.
he had all kinds of physical issues later on in life because he just didn't take care of himself throughout his life. So this work is, and I hear about that story about military veterans and the things that, and even no matter what war they were in, where they just come back and they're changed as people, men and
Yeah.
women.
I just lost a friend like 2 days ago. Took his
Wow.
own life. I had no idea. I had no idea that he was struggling or anything else. And then I got the word that he had passed. And then, his wife put something on social media, and she was like, he's been struggling for a long time. And I was like, I had no idea. I certainly would have, if I would have like had an inkling, I would have, been way more intrusive and involved in trying to help him combat that.
Yeah, I think that just comes down to we all have these demons inside. They say, you can have a smile on your face, but there's something going on internally that you might not be talking about. So
Yeah.
maybe your wife or your husband would know, but they're the closest people to you. So,
Yeah.
but so what lessons did you learn? Kind of going back to your military career, what lessons did you learn in the military as far as like what you apply in life now? I guess is the best way to put it.
So that's an awesome question. So, we have Naked Warrior Recovery. We have the Get Naked mindset. And it's, again, it's about taking that ego, that armor off. But, I've also turned it into an acronym because, when I fixed my wagon after I got out, it took me a couple years to really get myself straight and figure out my purpose and my mission and start building my new team around me. I had to I went back and kind of thought about the things that I had learned in the SEAL teams that I can apply to my life, and then people can apply those things to their own life. I'll try to do this without coughing very much. But so what I came up with is like, why don't I just use the lingo that I'm already using about getting naked? And so I created Naked to be an acronym. And so the acronym really stands for never quit. And it's not about never quit smoking or drinking. It's about never quit on yourself. It's about never quitting. If you started something, you take it all the way to the end. You take it to whatever that end looks like. And I give out some tips to figure out how to do that. And if you go to 5sealsecrets.com, you can download, put your name and email in there. I'll send you a copy of what the Get Naked mindset is all about. But you can also find it on my website. I think it says SEAL mindset. But the N stands for never quit. The A is accept failure, because for me, failure has been the biggest teacher of my life. I learn more through failure than I do from success. So I'm happy. I've had this conversation a lot. I'm happy to like the things on the wall back here. Those are people see them as signs of success. I see them as trophies of failure, of what I've learned along the way to get where I am today. So the A is accept failure. The K is kill mediocrity, because, let's face it, we're surrounded by mediocrity every day. If you don't think so, tell me how hard it is to not get stuck scrolling your smartphone and just get sucked into social media or sucked into whatever is out there, playing some game when you're sitting on the toilet or whatever. I'm sorry, on the throne. And just get sucked into this thing in our hand, get sucked into technology. So the way I tell people to kind of kill mediocrity in their life is to start compete in kindness, compete in gratitude, compete in generosity, and then most importantly, compete against your ego, because your ego knows exactly what to tell you to make you quit, to make you not achieve your goals for the day, to not go work out, to not be a better person, to get just the mediocrity of getting sucked into your phone. The E is expose your fears, and I don't mean lions and tigers and bears. I mean like those fears, those thoughts that linger in the back of your brain that you don't share with anyone, kind of those things that we just talked about. The things that, like those thoughts that come out when you're alone in your car, or keep you up at night, or they wake you up at night. There's lots of ways to battle them. One of my business coaches and really good friend, his name is Sharon Srivatsa. He came up with the saying that says, fear does not exist on paper. And he's in the billionaire category. You would not know that he is that he suffers from stress and anxiety and things like that, or those fears. And, he'll say, he's driving along in his car, and like all these things like start swirling around in his head, and he'll pull over, he'll go to a Starbucks, and he will order a small coffee, and he'll take a pen and a piece of paper, and he'll write down every one of those thoughts, every one of those fears that are swirling around in his head. He'll write them down on a piece of paper, and he'll read them. And this magical thing happens is when you expose the fear, and it doesn't matter if it's through you verbalize it, you write it down, you do things that scare you. Once you start exposing that fear, you start controlling the fear, and the fear will no longer control you. And the D is to do the work. We talked about, SEAL training is hard. And I remember graduating from SEAL training, and I thought it's going to be easy from here on out. I just graduated the hardest military training in the world. And, when I showed up at the SEAL team, I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut most of the time, not all the time. But I learned very quickly that that's, no one cares that you graduated SEAL training, or how well or how bad you did. They only care about what you're doing today. There's a saying in the SEAL teams that says the only easy day was yesterday. And that's because we don't care how good you were yesterday. We care about how good you are today. Yeah. Like, we want you to be better today than you were yesterday. Like, we don't care about the struggles, the sacrifice, the whatever. That was yesterday. Today, new struggles, new sacrifice, new level of performance. And that's really what do the work is all about. So again, it's never quit, accept failure, kill mediocrity, expose your fears, and do the work. And that's really the get making mindset.
I imagine with a SEAL, if they're not performing every day, one of their brothers could die. And so they need to come and perform every day. Imagine the corporate people in corporate America that are sitting at that coffee pot for the first 30 minutes of their day. They could be performing.
There's so many things you could be doing.
Yeah. Even self-development, planning your day, whatever. It doesn't always have to be so intense, but they're not doing something towards their day that's for them. Like, I just started recently doing a 2.5 mile round walk because I was like, I've got to do something because this COVID weight's getting to be too much, and nothing comes off of it. You don't do anything.
Right.
So
100%.
Right. Probably not as beautiful as Oahu. And the Florida's a good third or second.
Florida's still pretty good though. It's not. It's very similar. The only what I tell people, the difference between Florida and Hawaii is Florida is flat, and Hawaii we have mountains.
Oh yeah.
That's really the biggest difference, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. I'm going to share real quick, everybody. I'm going to just pull up, share my screen. I'm going to show your website real quick.
Awesome.
And then just give me 1 second. Yeah. So anything that you want to tell me about where we can show them, but I think
if you just hit the shop now button, either that one or that one. Yeah. So we've got some apparel. We've got we've got traditional CBD products, and I've got a really awesome some awesome sleep products because we've got sleep. I was doing some research earlier, and it turns out that like 50 to 70 million people in the US struggle with sleep every single night in some form or fashion. And so we put a lot of effort into really formulating some of our sleep products. So we've got a sleep gummy because, first we started off with a sleep soft gel, and the soft gel, the gummies have the same thing, but it has a little extra in it, a little extra CBD and some other stuff in it. But we start off with, it's got 30 milligrams of CBD in it. It's got 3 milligrams of melatonin, 3 milligrams of CBN. So CBN is the sedative molecule inside the hemp plant. And so the way that I use them, I use the gummies and or the soft gels. And so I'll finish dinner, and then I'll take whatever I'm taking for that night. Usually, for me, I usually take 2. And the habit that I have, it's a terrible habit, is when I get tired, I'll just keep doing whatever it is I'm doing, whether I'm working on a project or I'm watching a video or something. And I end up pushing through that sleepy time, that time where I get tired. And I push through it, and then I like hit my second wind, and I'm like, oh, now it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm still going and I'm not quite tired. And so I start drinking, and that just ends poorly overall. So when I started implementing this into my nightly routine, I take 2 gummies or 2 soft gels at the end of the day. What actually happens is I hit that tire point, and I never get that second wind. At some point, I give up, I tap out, and I take myself to bed.
Wow.
So I don't have to rely on alcohol or anything else to like get tired and try to wind down for the end of the day. I get tired through the molecules and the things that we have in these products. And the sleep gummies they're a brand new product. I just got on the website, and it's quickly becoming one of my best sellers.
This is the one.
I think so. Nope, that's a different one. That one has that has that has a little more THC than some other products in it. Almost everything on my site is we remove the molecule THC, but there's a couple of things that have its full spectrum, so it still has some THC in it. This has a little more THC in it. They look very similar. The sleep gummies, I think they say it's go down. That's the one on the left, I think. Just above, a little higher. Go back up. Stop right there.
Oh,
Next.
Good Night Gummies. Okay.
Yep. Good Night Gummies. There you go.
Yeah, I just have a friend that this is. I'd love for him to get this. He has trouble sleeping, and
I mean, you could go with the buzzing gummies. You can go with the Good Night Gummies. They're both really like they'll hold you down pretty good.
Well, this is good stuff. Guys, go to his website, nwrecovery.com, nw-recovery.com.
Yeah.
It's in the description of the show, and I'll put it up at least one more time before the end of the show. But just wanted to kind of give them a feel for the website and for them to check it out as well to help, because there's so many people out there, not just military vets, that need help
so
with
many
sleeping
people
and pain. And I have a friend that she has so much pain in her body that she takes CBD products just for the pain in her body, and so it really helps her. So, what are some things that you could give as like last minute, or wrapping down the show, that you could give the viewers that is advice for them in their life? Because you have a lot of leadership skills and skills to persevere that maybe we haven't talked about during the show.
One of the things I like to share is when you're struggling in life and when you're kind of stuck and you're trying to do these incremental things and you're not quite getting where you want to go, kind of like what you said, you take off to get off the COVID weight, you just like started doing like 2.5 miles of walking every day. I tell people to make bold adjustments, and sometimes those bold adjustments are like almost seem like unreasonable things to do, or almost like the wrong thing to do. And so where that idea came from is, I used to teach sniper school. I was a sniper in the platoons, in the SEAL teams. I was also a sniper instructor. And one of the things that I saw almost every single iteration where we would, bring new leadership in, you get a new set of guns, we'd go to the range and start sighting them in. And, the rounds are impacting way over here, the bullseye's over here. And they're like making adjustments, like 20, 30, 40, 50 rounds in. And they're like, my optic is broken, something's wrong with my gun. And I'll just come over and I'll say, may I please see your gun? And I'll just make these unreasonable, just like adjustments to their optic. And they're like, you just broke my, like, you broke it. It's not going to work now. And so I hand it back to them and I say, fire 3 more rounds. And what happens is the rounds, they went from over here and they impact the other side of the bullseye. But it's not so far away, like it's not off the paper. It's actually much closer to the bullseye than where they were hitting. It's just on the other side. Now they can make those incremental adjustments to come back where they need to go so they can get their rounds in the center on target where they need them to go. But if they would have just kept, we would have been there all day just making these small adjustments along the way. Sometimes you just need to make the bold, unreasonable adjustments, and you're actually going to get closer to where you want to hit. And then you can make the incremental adjustments to come back.
Good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Because no action does nothing.
Exactly.
And then people talk about the law of attraction. I'm like, that's wonderful, but it still doesn't move. Nothing happens. Like love doesn't come and knocking on your door.
You got to go out and you got to do something about it.
Well, awesome. This is great. I really appreciate you coming on the show and and helping people and doing your work. And finding that purpose beyond your former purpose. And really, you're still a warrior. Now you're just a different warrior. So, and helping people. So, everybody, next, go ahead.
Really quickly, if I could just go ahead and give you and your viewers a discount code.
Yeah, of course.
As soon as we hang up here, I'll throw it in there. I'll make it. So we'll just call it storytelling is the discount code, and it'll save you 20% off of any of your purchases at Naked Warrior Recovery.
Code for, I'm just putting it in the 20% discount on site. I put side, everybody, but you guys know what I mean. And I'm going to put it up there on the screen.
Perfect.
And so it's going to be at his.
Give me 10 minutes to actually go into the website and update it. But yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Perfect. And everybody,
hang up.
We will be back on the show next week at 10 p.m. Eastern with my friend Jane Dawson from Scotland. And it should be a great show. She's an amazing. She was the director of marketing for the military, or the Ministry of Defense in England. I'm like, why do they need a marketing department? She said, you would just never know. That's her response
I
to it.
love it.
It should
I
be
love
a
it.
great show. Much love, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. William, thank you for coming on the show.